we got to talk about an AEW departure that is happening because as of April 1st, this person will no longer be contracted to the company. They are headed out from the company. And the reasons for it are actually kind of interesting. So we're going to talk about that plus a variety of topics. But I want to kick things off with Lady Frost. Lady Frost was signed to AEW for a while now. She's made a couple appearances. Um, we saw her in January against Mina Shirakawa. And then interestingly enough, we hadn't seen her since July before that, which is strange, but it's not that strange considering we have seen talent come into AEW and then not necessarily have major plans or whatever it may be. Now, with Lady Frost, it's actually been reported by Fightful Select that the company um, is losing her. She's leaving the company, apparently. As of April 1st, she will become a free agent, and we don't really know the circumstances as to why she's leaving the company, but it is expected that she will be gone from the company. Unless something drastic changes, the expectation is that she is gone. Now, Lady Frost is incredibly talented. We have seen her make appearances in TNA as well as WWE in the past. We have seen her, do a lot of things in the indies. She's actually a very skilled performer. The way she was brought in and her presentation kind of made everybody believe that she was going to be a big part of the women's division. I actually don't fault AEW here, though. I think a lot of people are looking at AEW and what they do, and I think a lot of people want to criticize them for not utilizing Lady Frost. But I think there's always two sides to the story. And I think for AEW, when you look at how much their women's division has progressed since the time they brought in Lady Frost, the truth is, I don't think they really need her. And I don't think she's going to stand out against the Megan Bains of the world. Tekla, who came in and immediately was given a push, right? There's just certain talents who work out better than others. And I think for AEW and their vision and what they're doing as a company, I think Lady Frost just doesn't necessarily fit anymore. I think when she signed to the company, it seemed pretty realistic for her to be pushed. And then I think as you move further and further along, you start to realize that the vision is slightly changing. So, interestingly enough, Lady Frost leaving, it obviously doesn't impact the company, but it does impact her in a certain way because now you have to wonder where will she go. Um, I think some people are pointing the fingers to WWE, which I think makes sense. I think NXT bringing in Lady Frost, like I could see that happening. But I think realistically, Lady Frost should go to TNA. TNA is always known for pushing their knockouts division. They're always known for taking people who are underutilized in other companies and giving them something to work with. And I think Lady Frost can go in there and potentially, I say potentially because I don't know if it's a sure thing, but I think she could potentially go into TNA and do some good stuff with the Knockouts division. But this is just kind of like an interesting story, man. You got AEW. Um, Forget about the business aspect of it, forget about the success or lack of success. Just looking at it from a creative standpoint, I think AEW has really found their footing this year. I think their vision is starting to come back. And I just think certain people fit that vision and certain people don't. And that's okay. Like that's just the way it's going to be. And I think Tony Khan should actually be given credit here that he is sticking to this vision. Um, for me, it's something that I respect a little bit about Tony Khan because I feel like 2025, they kind of went away from their vision. 2024, they were slowly going away from their vision. You know, it's just they need to make change. And I think for Tony Khan, the more that you make change based on what's working, the more you are susceptible to that change, the more success you will find. There's going to be a lot of people commenting about their ticket sales and this and that, and that's just going to be a work in progress for a while. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things they're going to have to work on, but creatively and your vision, it has to be there. And I think they're starting to get there again. So that's a good thing for the company. Lady Frost leaving the company doesn't hurt the company. And it's just a wait and see type of thing, and we'll see what happens next. I want to turn our attention to a former WWE star who has joined AEW. This is a very, very interesting story because as we talk about AEW and signing people who may or may not fit the vision, there is some question marks here. We are talking about Ashanti the Adonis, also known as Tahuti Miles. Now, Fightful Select had reported that Ashanti the Adonis had actually signed with AEW in September. Now, maybe you guys don't have a calendar in front of you. Let me remind you, it is March 2026. So it has been several months since he has signed with AEW, but they haven't done anything with him. And this has led to a lot of conversation between people, just kind of wondering what are they doing. And I actually think this has everything to do with Ring of Honor, which we are going to talk a little bit more about Ring of Honor later on, because there are some big news with Ring of Honor potentially getting a TV deal. But I think that's kind of what AEW is working on. I think Tony Khan is specifically working on ROH having its own identity, and Ashanti the Adonis will be for that brand. That hasn't been confirmed or anything. That's just my speculation based on what is happening in the professional wrestling industry. But when you look at Tony Khan and what he's doing, Ashanti the Adonis is a very talented wrestler. Very talented wrestler. The dude could go in the ring. And in addition to that, he has charisma and he is very, very, very good at character work. So this is a guy who kind of checks all the boxes when given the opportunity. Now, Ashanti the Adonis was part of SmackDown and he was part of NXT. He was part of Hit Row. They did a little bit of a tag team with him and Cedric Alexander before he left the company. This is a guy who's never really just been given that chance. And if I'm Tony Khan and I'm building Ring of Honor, yeah, I think that's something you need to consider. I think you need to consider making him a part of that brand full time and near the top of the card. I think Ring of Honor should have a little bit of a different identity than what AEW is. Because if you are searching for TV deals, that is something you have to be cognizant of. And I don't know if you have the same product across all these brands, if that is actually worth it to TV suitors. And I think that is something that you have to consider. Speaking of that ROH TV deal, I just want to touch on this for just a moment because there is some stuff that is floating around. And if you guys may have not known this, just this past Sunday, Ring of Honor did new tapings in Jacksonville. And it was revealed that Jacksonville is now the new home of Ring of Honor. So they are doing like a very small studio based wrestling show. The crowd is very, very tiny. Um, Probably it's a little bit less than the WWE NXT Performance Center um, for NXT, right? But it's maybe like 100 fans in attendance. They do sell concessions, they do have things like that available to fans. But Ring of Honor taped 3 weeks worth of shows at this venue, and this is the new home. This is pretty cool, but I'm happy about this because Ring of Honor does need its own identity. It can't be taped the same arena where Dynamite and Collision are being taped, you know? And the belief is that Ring of Honor is doing this because they are trying to craft its own identity to get a TV deal. So I just wanted to touch on that for a moment because that could be a really good thing for Tony Khan. We don't know. There's so much stuff happening with Paramount and Netflix and HBO Max and the TV deals and streaming deals. Everything's changing. It's a very chaotic time. But I think if you're Tony Khan, there is still an opportunity for you to get a TV deal with Ring of Honor. And I know people use the Watch Ring of Honor app and Honor Club or whatever you want to call it, but that's not suitable for all the viewers, and that's not going to grow. That's not going to make a big impact in the wrestling world. And I think with them going to a studio based wrestling show, it is the right choice. 1,000,000%. I am so glad that Tony Khan is doing it. I think it is going to work out greatly in their favor. Um, I'm curious to see what it looks like on TV. And I will be very intrigued by that because the pictures that floated around honestly didn't look like that crazy good, but it's okay. I love studio based wrestling. That's just something I always like. I like the WWE NXT Performance Center. I like how they've turned it into a studio for them to film. And I think it's a good thing for Ring of Honor to do the same. So, Ashanti the Adonis coming into Ring of Honor. Hopefully, we get to see more of him. And hopefully, we get to see this new vision for Ring of Honor to come to life. Hey, what the hell? We might as well talk about this too. Jake Hager, former WWE star, he was known as Jack Swagger. In AEW, he was known as Jake Hager. It's been revealed that Jake Hager, will be headed to Power Slap. Wrestlers doing dumb things for money and fame. So he was on TMZ Inside the Ring. He announced that he has signed a multi-match contract with Power Slap. He says, "I'm so excited to announce that I've signed with UFC Power Slap. They are doing a show April 17th live in Vegas. That's the Friday before WrestleMania. I will be competing in that show in the heavyweight division." He also said that he's been told he has a very slappable face. So obviously, this is a relatively big deal. Looks like he's pretty much done wrestling. I don't know. Maybe he could return to professional wrestling. We don't really know about that. But let's just talk about the fact that he's going to Power Slap. Because if you guys don't know what Power Slap is, I think it is the most idiotic, dumb combat sport, if you even want to call it that. But UFC's Dana White started Power Slap. It's very much influenced by a lot of the leagues in Europe where you stand at a podium and you slap each other until you knock someone out. And Jake Hager is doing that. I think that's stupid, but I will watch it because stupidity sometimes is the best form of brain rot. And with Jake Hager being a former WWE and AEW star, it will be really cool to see what he does. I don't know if there's a level of skill taken for this. I don't know. I'm not a power slap analyst. I'm not a enthusiast. I don't know what the training regimen is. But for some reason, Power Slap gets crazy amount of views on social media. So with Dana White owning Power Slap, who knows what this means? I don't know. Jake Hager, Jack Swagger, he's like a real athlete, dude. This guy was like a real wrestler, and he did MMA, and he was good at it. So the fact that he's going to Power Slap is very intriguing, but I think it's very idiotic. And I don't know if you guys will ever hear me say anything positive about Power Slap, but I will watch it. I will cover it, and I will talk about it on this channel because who doesn't want to see a former wrestler potentially knock out somebody with a slap or get knocked out with a slap? So that should be kind of fun to see what happens there. But yeah, man, wild to see. And for Jake Hager, bro, if he goes in there and he kills it, maybe this is a chance for him to kind of reinvigorate his career because the way his career ended and the controversies and leaving AEW and things of that nature, it was definitely a lot. And I think for a lot of people, they kind of changed the way they look at him. So maybe he can kind of change people's perception at the very least. All right, let's turn our attention to WWE WrestleMania. More specifically, Gunther apparently doesn't have any plans. They just had him retire John Cena and AJ Styles, but for some reason, they don't have any plans for him. So that is very interesting. There was a new report that came from WrestleVotes Radio, and WrestleVotes came out and said that the creative direction for Gunther is currently listed as undetermined. Now, a lot of people were expecting Gunther to feud with Brock Lesnar, which we have heard that Brock Lesnar, we know, is going to have some sort of open challenge. But Brock Lesnar is also rumored to retire at SummerSlam. So maybe they save Gunther for SummerSlam. And then the rumor was that LA Knight would verse Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, which could make sense. If you guys saw Raw this past week, we saw LA Knight driving the ambulance with Paul Heyman inside. So I think LA Knight and Brock Lesnar having a match at WrestleMania kind of makes sense. Not something I really desire, but I could see that happening. So what happens for Gunther if they don't have plans for him? Quite frankly, I don't know. It kind of makes you wonder, why didn't they just save AJ Styles for WrestleMania? Um, Obviously, we know the reason why that didn't go down. But yeah, WrestleVote says it's undetermined, not something 100% I've heard. I don't know where they're going to go. It could be Rey Mysterio. It could be because obviously we saw him go after Dragon Lee. Maybe they have something with Gunther and Obafemi if it's not Obafemi and Brock. So that could make sense, right? If Brock Lesnar versus LA Knight takes place, I could see them doing Gunther. I could see them doing Gunther and Oba, right? But they don't really have plans here, and it's weird. And one thing that I really want to mention too with Gunther not having plans, I don't know if this is like a matter of WWE like not planning things carefully because WWE typically plans WrestleMania like so far in advance. It just seems kind of weird that so many things are changing so close to WrestleMania. And granted, it is only March, but it just seems like they would have been a little bit more proactive with this type of thing. Gunther is not some no name guy. Like he's one of their main eventers. He's one of their top guys. Um, I don't know. I really, really don't know. And I think maybe I could be wrong, but maybe there was a plan with Chris Jericho coming in and then his contract, being frozen from AEW. Maybe that's what they were hoping for. Maybe Chris Jericho was going to come in and have a retirement match. I don't know. But something clearly changed for WWE that is screwed over Gunther. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. And I don't know exactly what they can do right now to get me excited about a potential feud. Because we mentioned Obafemi, but like that's too soon, bro. That's way too soon. And I don't like that idea, honestly. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Obviously, I'll keep you guys updated along the way. Speaking of WrestleMania, we should probably talk about some character change plans for a WWE superstar. We are talking about Sami Zayn. And I thought this was crazy to think about because according to Ibu from Self Made PW, which we'll see the validity here. He's come out and basically said that WWE is looking at turning Trick Williams face, but turning Sami Zayn heel. And listen, I agree with the Trick Williams face turn. I've talked about it a million times. He should walk out of WrestleMania as WWE champion. I've been very on board with that. He's the most over act in WWE right now. So I'm good with that. Sami Zayn, I feel like they kind of want to do the Cody Rhodes, Daniel Bryan thing, where Sami Zayn, WrestleMania 43 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, he'll walk out as WWE champion at WrestleMania. So when I see the idea of Sami Zayn turning heel even being floated around, I just immediately think that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Sami Zayn turning heel, Sami's a good heel, bro. He's a really good heel. But when I think of him turning heel, I don't think the adversity that he faces will lead him to the WWE Championship. And I don't know if WWE would genuinely want him to win the World Championship as a heel. I think if you look at it different from a different lens, in a perfect world, you would hope that Kevin Owens was cleared. Because then there is stuff there with Kevin Owens being a heel, Trick Williams being a face. Sammy being a baby face, if he's on the road to WrestleMania 43 to potentially become world champion, it's going to be a rocky road. You cannot do an adversity storyline where a guy has to face all this adversity and do it as a heel. Now, if you want to add a little bit of a character tweak to where he's like a tweener, I think you might be able to make it work. But I think the idea of Sami Zayn turning heel is kind of a bad one. And again, I don't know the validity of Ibu and self-made PW. I don't know if we should trust this reporting. But what I do know is that the idea is not one that I'm really fond of. And of course, with anything that we get in professional wrestling, we'll have to wait and see. But I just think right now, the way it stands, I'm not for it. So that's all I really got to say about that. And that brings us to our final topic in today's video. There has been a lot of back and forth on social media between Jade Cargill and a variety of the other people in WWE. A lot of the women in WWE have gone back and forth on social media with Jade Cargill. Now, a lot of people have been wondering, is this a work? Is there truly heat? What is going on? WrestleVotes has come out and said specifically, as far as the reputation in the locker room, I've heard from a couple of different sources that there's heat there. Not everyone's favorite talent. She's still a star. And WWE still clearly views her as a star. They're protecting her and not throwing her into situations where she can't succeed, but we have heard that some talent may not. Now, with that being said, there has been a lot of stuff on social media also claiming that this is all a work and WWE is really trying to work people here. So there is a very big mixture of talk here. Is it real? Is it not? We just saw CM Punk and Roman Reigns go bar for bar in a promo battle on Raw. We're seeing Jade Cargill go bar for bar with other women on Twitter. So, like, yeah, in my opinion, what I'm really starting to see here and what I'm really starting to notice here is that I think WWE is trying to blur the lines of what is real and what is fake. And do I believe that every wrestler is going to be friends with every wrestler? No. No, I don't think so. And I think some people look at Jade Cargill and see how she's pushed and protected, and I'm sure it rubs some people the wrong way. But deep down inside, naturally speaking, you're not going to have a perfect balance of people being friendly with each other. And it doesn't matter the company, and it's never been that way. And that doesn't change for you either. You could work at Walmart and not like all of your coworkers, right? So the same thing applies to professional wrestling. I think with the Jade Cargill situation, though, what this does is really make professional wrestling um, a little bit more exciting. I think we all know kayfabe is kind of dead. So when you have to question whether or not it actually is dead in a particular storyline, that's the best. Especially when you see Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill involved. Like, it's a massive, massive match. You need to build it up in a short period of time. What's the way to do that? This is the way to do that. So I am not convinced that it is 100% uh, real. I'm convinced it is a work, but I think they're doing a good job of blurring the lines of what that looks like, and how it's perceived by the fans so far has been great. I think a lot of fans are actually intrigued by it and they're paying attention to it, and the social media numbers prove that. So ultimately, at the end of the day, Jade Cargill is talented, but we all know Jade Cargill is not the best wrestler in the world. But the thing that Jade does very well is present herself in a way that is massive. And I think that is perfect in a storyline driven environment like this, where you're trying to get people to think a lot of people really don't like her. So it's fun. It's cool. Does she have backstage heat? That's what WrestleVotes is saying. But other sources are indicating that it's all a work. So this is going to be one to pay attention to, one that I'm excited about. And let's just be real. Let's call it what it is. The idea of Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill, it's an interesting match. But if you are TKO, you have to look at who is truly your star. And Jade Cargill is a star for WWE and TKO, but Rhea Ripley is the star. Rhea Ripley is up there with the men, right? She's up there with the CM Punks and the Cody Rhodes of this company. And that has played to a really great benefit. A lot of casuals now know who Rhea Ripley is. And so that is what you need to do. You need to build upon that. And I think the idea of Rhea winning the WWE Championship is perfect. And I think when she wins the WWE Championship, inevitably you should have Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley planned for SummerSlam. So that's the way I'm looking at it. That's my analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Ango Show. Thank you all for watching.